Well, he's being evaluated today, so I think we'll have a better sense of what that looks like. But clearly it's a setback in terms of we were excited to get him back. We were hopeful that he could ease his way back into the rotation. As you can imagine, when you're pitching down on a rehab, there's only so much you can do as far as like build up volume, but I think the intensity of what you see here is a lot different, and certainly I think affected his pitch counts early, and thus ended up putting a strain on his shoulder. So, hopefully it's something that we still see him this year. I mean, we're pretty optimistic that will be the case based on what we're hearing, but clearly it's going to take some more time to get him back.
He said this.
Is this a different injury than the previous one?
Not really. It's his shoulder right now is just feeling some stiffness, and I think a lot of it is when you try to, again, like replicate volume is one thing, but intensity is another, and I think putting that extra stress on what you're seeing to get through those innings has put a little more tension in that shoulder.
When you say optimistic, we'll see him this year, says it's going to be a lot. Do you have any idea, like minimum, what it could be if it's nothing serious? Do you have any idea about that?
Well, hopefully it's something where he can quiet it down, and then we're going to have to build him back up. So right now we haven't determined what that timetable looks like.
Are there any second guesses from the organization point of view about not getting it taken care of in the off season with some type of procedure?
No, not at all. I don't think anybody was recommending a procedure. So, I think if you're asking, like, what would you second guess, would be like, could we have extended him longer on the rehab assignment? And, that is always a possibility.
Well, for an organization that was so patient and deliberate about working Jack back through these first couple of months, what ultimately was the deciding factor in bringing him back after just 2 rehab starts?
Well, a lot of it's based on the feedback you're getting from the athlete, and at that point, he was very optimistic of where he was. Internally, we debated that, but ultimately, it's not our decision. So, we laid out a plan. Plan was deviated, and here we are.
When you say it's not your decision, then where does the decision fall on?
Well, where would you think?
So, I guess from your point of view, and I want to make it clear this is not a blame. It's
No,
just
that's what I'm trying to say.
Explanation.
My explanation is that if you're looking at second guessing something, it could be the fact that we didn't stick to the original plan.
When you looked at what he was doing at his rehabs and even bullpen sessions, everyone said the ball was coming out well and he looked good, and then the games were something totally different. Why do you think that was, when it was so drastic, at least in appearance, and the way that even his arm angle was different from his rehab?
Look, I mean, I'm not a pitcher. I've never pitched in the big leagues, but I got to imagine that what you do in practice is hard to replicate in game. And I learned this a long time ago. When you even think about like spring training and trying to ramp players up, it's hard to replicate game situations, and the speed of the game can change a lot of what you do. And I think in his particular case, he was having struggle, commanding the pitches that he needed to. Pitch counts would all of a sudden rise rather quickly, and then I just think there was just immediate strain. And so here we are, where physically now he's not able to go out there.
You just had this news. Do you guys have any plans for how you're going to cope with this?
Well,
the rotation might be a while.
Well, I think one thing, the good news is Matt's is going out on his rehab starting tomorrow. We know that's going to take some time. It's not just one and done, but we are hopeful that we can get him back at the worst case to start the second half of the season. But in the meantime, we'll just keep giving some of these younger guys a chance. But we obviously can't rule out anything potentially down the road as far as trades.
Yeah, so, John, in terms of like your offense is exceptional, your defense is exceptional, you run really well. If you get to the deadline and there's no person in this organization that stepped up and filled that kind of role, would it be a necessity to bring in a marquee pitcher?
Well, I don't want to get into semantics. You need people that can eat innings. last year, if you recall, like the pitchers we brought in, I don't think would have met your criteria just then, but it worked. And so, like, trying to determine what that looks like, I think, internally upstairs we'll look at what's possibly out there and, what the acquisition costs look like for that. But, I think in the meantime, we need guys that can go right now and pitch and eat as many innings as possible.
Are the doctors confident that the same sort of plan, the rest, rehab, build up can get him back to where he was?
I mean, we're hopeful. I haven't had an in-depth breakdown on his situation yet, but based on initial findings, I think they're pretty optimistic.
What's the situation with Bader?
So Bader's been dealing with plantar fasciitis probably for the entire season, and he's just been trying to gut it out, play through it, but he got to a point where he just feels like it's really affecting his at-bats and his defense, and so, long story short, he's going to, go through some therapy here. Hopefully we can get him so he's pain-free, and then, hopefully he'll be back contributing. But I do anticipate this being shorter rather than longer, but, again, day one of this, so we'll see.
Is that a situation that he might have to have corrected in the off season? Is to hope you can get him through this season and then?
I haven't heard of anything like that at this point. There are some tools or some things that people can do when they experience this, and so I'm sure we'll exhaust those first.
When you made the
What
decision,
you're getting on Tyler? Is he close to maybe coming back? If you're losing Bader, is Tyler a possibility?
Well, I that's the worst thing we can start doing is just start rushing things because of need. Look, it's the one thing I could say about O'Neill is we'd like him to go down and have a rehab assignment. So hopefully that's something by the end of this weekend, perhaps, and then maybe see him back, active by the time we return from this road trip. And as we've done here a lot, when things happen like this, someone else gets a new opportunity, and so Connor Capel will get that chance, and hopefully, he can make the most of that.
What's the next step for Hicks?
Hicksy will throw tomorrow, so he'll follow Matt's at Memphis, and then he'll go do a back-to-back, so then pitch again on Wednesday. Then we'll decide what's the next step.
Multiple innings for Hicks?
Going back-to-back, I imagine it's going to be 1-1.
well, what goes into the decision for Capel over Burleson with the call-up?
Really, it's roster spot flexibility. At some point, we're going to get the people on the COVID back, and so having to run someone like Burleson through waivers could be tricky,
So the guys,
if not impossible.
The guys that you called up today, they will have to be subjected to waivers if they were to come off the 40.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If you found that plantar fasciitis is something he's always going to have, it's just a matter of treating it, that never really goes away, does it?
I haven't heard if that's something permanent for him, but I mean, we do have experience with Albert having it, and when he was treated with it, he was able to find his way back on the field.
It seems like he finally had surgery at some point with the injuries.
He did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about the pitcher from Cape Girardeau, Nail?
So we brought up James Nail, and the thinking behind that was really twofold. He fits the ground ball profile that we always search for, and he throws strikes. And so, he should fit in pretty well with us.
When you look at the rotation need for the weekend, Livermore obviously is the guy we've seen in that spot. Are there other candidates that start this weekend, or will he be your guy?
I would say he's most likely going to get that start.
Was Jack supposed to, the original plan would have been 2 more rehab starts or just 1?
The original plan was 2 more.
When you look across the league, a lot of candidates in consideration for national, well, all the MVPs have been on the injured list at times this season. Does that make what Goldschmidt has done stand out that much more to you? Has been so steady, been in the lineup pretty much every day after this kind of crazy off season?
He's incredible. I mean, I think right now, like I said the other day, I mean, he's one of the top 2 or 3 baseball players on earth. So, I mean, I think from a physical standpoint, he's someone that I mean, look, some of the people that have been injured it's bad luck, right? But he is someone that is very intentional and disciplined in his training and preparation. And from that standpoint, you can see it paying dividends because, he is someone that can answer the bell, and it's really impressive. But really, when you look at Nolan and him, I mean, they do what they're doing in a time when there are a lot of people finding the IL. It's impressive.